Beyond the conifers lies the Botanical Gardens crown jewel, the Enid A. Haupt Conservatory, completed in 1902. Inside, you can explore an acre under glass, a journey that takes you from tropical rainforest habitats to dry deserts. Filled with thousands of plants, it is an absolute wonder and the anchor for the garden's exhibition program.
Ahead, at the top of the hill, is the Leicester T. Gardens Library Building, completed in 1901. In front is the William Goldman Fountain of Life, which was inspired by the Baroque fountains of Rome.
The Arts Library is home to more than 11 million items. The oldest is a manuscript from 1190. We also have field papers, points of enchanted regions in search of rare and rare species. It's the largest and most active botanical and horticultural library in the world. While scientists from across the globe come to do research here, the library is open to everyone. It's a great place to learn more about what you see here at the garden. The library's art gallery hosts several exhibitions each year, which explore the deep connections between gardening and the humanities. You can also visit the science exhibitions in this building to learn more about the work of our cutting-edge researchers.
Head toward the main road, take a minute to appreciate the tulip tree allée.
Allée is French for a tree-lined walk.
These are tulip trees, named for the green and yellow springtime flowers that resemble tulips. This memorable planting was named a New York City landmark in 2009, along with the library building and Fountain of Life. According to garden lore, the tulip trees planted here came from a single mother tree, which is the largest tree in the allée, and is just one of the thousands of trees across the landscape that are older than the garden itself.
The rest of the tulip trees were planted in 1905 under the direction of the garden's founding director, botanist and taxonomist Nathaniel Lord Britton.
Britton and his wife, Elizabeth Knight Britton, herself a distinguished botanist, were leaders of the movement to create a grand botanical garden in New York City in the late 19th century. While on their honeymoon in London in 1888, they visited the Royal Botanic Gardens, Kew. What they saw inspired them to lobby elected officials and civic leaders to create a public garden dedicated to science, education, and horticulture in New York.
The Britons were successful, and in 1891, the New York State Legislature incorporated the New York Botanical Garden. Soon after, the couple selected this site, which featured a 50-acre old-growth forest surrounded by fields and pastures. In 1895, landscape architect Calvert Fox, co-designer of Manhattan Central Park, created a master plan for the garden to allow for the planting of beautiful and diverse collections, while preserving the natural beauty of the landscape.
More than 125 years after its founding, the garden staff remained dedicated to preserving the natural and horticultural beauty of the landscape. They care for thousands of mature trees, plant hundreds of thousands of bulbs, annuals, and perennials, mow 75 acres of turf, and clip a mile of hedges to maintain this green oasis in the middle of New York City.
The garden is also a center for research and home to scientists and graduate students who are working to understand plant diversity and save the plants of the world. As they travel the globe, they might be collaborating with local partners in Brazil to preserve the rainforest, or recording the medicinal uses of plants in the South Pacific. Closer to home, they document native plant species in the Hudson Valley and Central Park. NYBG scientists have written hundreds of books, from field references to a handbook of poisonous plants used in hospital emergency rooms.
Many of our scientists work in the garden's Pfizer Plant Research Laboratory and the William and Linda Steer Herbarium. The Steer Herbarium is the second largest herbarium in the world. It houses approximately 8 million dried, pressed plant specimens, including some dating to the 1700s, which are used by scientists to identify new species and document where plants grow. Today, this area is called Twin Lakes. A century ago, people used to flock here to swim in summer and ice skate in winter. Today, birds flock here, especially water birds and seasonally migrating species. On Saturday mornings, you can join free bird watching tours. Garden visitors have spotted more than 200 species.
We're about to cross the Bronx River, originating in Westchester County and extending 23 miles to the East River. It is the city's only freshwater river. Once lined with factories and mills, it became very polluted. Now, thanks to the efforts of conservation organizations, the river is cleaner than it has been in centuries, and is once again home to a wonderful array of wildlife, from beavers to American eels.
Just downstream from here, the Bronx River cuts a dramatic gorge through the 50-acre Thane Family Forest, the largest surviving stand of uncut first-growth forest in New York City. Since its founding, the garden has preserved the forest in its natural state, but over the centuries it has suffered from the impacts of human activity and invasive non-native species. To ensure the forest remains healthy, the garden has implemented a program of ecological restoration.
We're approaching our next stop, in the Magnolia Collection. This is one of the oldest plant collections in the garden. The first trees were planted here in the early 1900s. When they flower in early spring, the magnolias create an unforgettable spectacle. Magnolia Collection is just one of many tree collections in the garden, with more than 30,000 trees, ranging from centuries-old titans to newly planted saplings, grow across the landscape. We're now passing through the oak collection, which includes oaks from Europe, Asia, and North America. Oaks are among the most economically and ecologically important trees in the world. The wood is used to build fine furniture and wine casks. Deer, chipmunks, rabbits, squirrels, and many other mammals feast on the acorns. The leaves are an important source of food for the caterpillars and other insects that in turn are consumed by the many birds found in the garden.
The living plant collections serve the garden's mission as a museum of plants. Scientists and students use these collections to learn about the diversity and adaptability of the plant kingdom. Gardeners can visit throughout the year and observe how different species and cultivated varieties change with the seasons. Our curators constantly evaluate the collections and search out interesting new varieties to add.
We are just about to pass the green zone at the top of the hill on side A. That's the home of the Green Materials Recycling Center, funded by generous public and private donors. It's where we compost all the leaves, grass clippings, spent flowers, and other material generated as we care for the garden. We use the compost we create to improve our soil and feed our plants.
Our Edible Academy stop, and this is our Edible Academy stop.
The amount of chemical fertilizers needed to help our plants thrive. On the same hill on side A is the East Gate. This area, which is made accessible by the Ann Hubbard Bridge, was completely redesigned in 2017. It now provides improved daytime access to the garden for our neighbors and visitors who arrive there by sunrise.
We're coming up to our next stop, the Edible Academy. This unique place was completed in 2018 and brings together the Ruth Ray Howell Family Garden, which has been located on this site for more than 30 years, with new year-round facilities that offer life-changing programs for local children and their families. It's a place where kids can dig in the soil, play with worms, learn what it takes to make a garden thrive, and maybe even want to eat their vegetables. Cooking demonstrations offer plenty of nutritious fun for adults and kids alike. Land